Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is able to hear me and everyone is able to see my screen. If possible, can someone please confirm if you are able to hear me clearly and able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, okay, I'm extremely sorry for the two continuous classes I'm not having because of some little bit emergency. Kindly don't mind. So, just like I want to repeat what exactly I have discussed so far. Okay. Just I will give a complete not rapo, complete introduction related to security, whatever I mentioned so far. Okay. So by default, security is an aspect which is mainly useful for authentication as well as authorization. Security is a concept which is mainly useful for authentication as well as authorization. That's the main concept. Okay. Authentication is protecting the application from invalid access. Only valid user ID as well as valid password only can access the application. That is a typical introduction about authentication. And authorization is maybe we are having application access, but which modules we can access, like controlling the application with roles, that is called as authorization. Okay, so by default we are going to have authentication as well as authorization, which is a typically a security. And what we have done is we have taken a MySQL dependent, my code of ticket booking application. I just added a security related artifact. Okay, just I added a security related artifact in the pom.xml. Okay, which is springboot starter security. This is a dependency I added, which is downloaded all the security jars in the bootstrap class, which is downloaded all the security jars in the bootstrap class from the bootstrap class and all those things. And when security jars are added, by default, the behavior of the application changes. Default application behavior is typically changed. What exactly changed? Before that, we used to get, before that, we are getting our outputs. Okay. So whenever I access localhost 8080 ticket slash all, I used to get a data. But after adding these dependencies, if I restart my application, then we are getting a login page. So it is automatically designed with a login page where we need to type some user ID, some password. And if we enter that user ID, that password, and then only it is redirecting back to my output. Otherwise, it is not giving access to that. So without writing any line of code, without writing any configuration, without doing any stuff, okay, without writing any line of code or without writing any stuff, by default, it is going to call Spring Boot Starter Security is taking care of everything. So what exactly the architecture is nothing but Spring Boot is designed a custom implementation of a security jars. By default, Bootstrap class will recognize whether security jars are in class path, then a custom login page and a custom authentication is going to happen. If authentication is successful, then only it will redirect to the respective controller. Otherwise, it will redirect to the same page. Here, login page is not written by developer. Authentication logic is not created by the developer. User ID password population is not done by the developer. Just we write only Spring Boot starter security. That means the framework comes with its own choice of coming its own framework. Okay. In detail, by default, Spring Boot comes with a default security filter, that is at the rate of bootstrap application. Whenever I write this at the rate of bootstrap class, which is at the rate of Spring Boot application, which is going to call, which is going to have a dispatcher servlet. which is going to have a dispatcher servlet. Whenever we hit localhost 8080 get all tickets or anything, dispatcher servlet will have a security filter. What is a security filter? Which is going to separate valid request versus invalid requests. Is it a valid or not? It is going to verify based on the request validity. Then web security configure adapter is going to take care of validation. So security filter, every request will be intercepted. Web security configure adapter is going to take care. That's a default security filter, which is going to have, which is going to redirect initial page to login page. Once authentication is success, it is going to redirect it to the respective REST controller. So this is the typical background architecture whenever we run a Spring Boot application with security. And there are 8 levels of securities, which I mentioned: default security, in-memory security, custom security, database security, advanced database security like JWT security, OAuth security. By default, it is going to totally taking care of 8 levels of security, which I'm going to explain 15 to 20 sessions only for security. And I mentioned that this is an important lecture overall my classes. JPA you can learn on your own. Transaction management you can learn on your own, but security you will not. It is difficult to learn on your own. So definitely, kindly I requested everyone daily join the classes without missing anything. Okay, and please practice daily so that you have a good knowledge on security. This is what so far I explained in my last class. As of now, anyone has any questions till now? Sir, any other questions based on till now? Is everyone is clear? Sir, is everyone is clear so far? Any questions by anyone? Please don't mind. Okay, making sure
Yes,
that.
clear.
Okay, let me repeat my question here. As of now, anyone has any questions so far?
Hey, sir, this is Srini. I had a very real quick question. That is, so in this number 4 database security, we used the word dynamic authentication. Why that is a dynamic, sir? I
I'll
mean, like
explain that
that.
at that time.
Sure.
I'll going to take it that time, right? Maybe if you
Okay.
explain now, right? No use, right? But I will explain at the same time. Okay. But I will give you at a high level. Okay. For example, sir, I created a user Srini. Okay. And Srini, I added a guest role. Okay. With a guest role, I can only log in and I can see a page. And I cannot create, I cannot update, I cannot delete. Only I have a read access for Srini. Okay. Now I want to change at a runtime for Srini. I want to give full access. I don't want to stop the server dynamically at runtime. I need to change a role without impacting any stuff. So that is called as dynamic authentication, dynamic authorization. There's a
Got
meaning
it.
here
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
at a high
Understood
level.
over.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions, guys? So far, anyone, any questions? Okay. Now, first point is basic security. That is a default security. Okay. Default security. So, okay, before I proceed further, I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay. Before I proceed further, in any of these types, okay, forget about first and two, remaining six, any of these six types you want to implement, developer need to write 10 to 20% of the code only. What do you mean by 10 to 20%? For example, I want to implement JWT and I need to write 100 lines of code, assuming that if Spring Boot is not there, where 100 lines of code is required to write. Okay. Out of these 100 lines, if Spring Boot security is there, by default, 10 to 20 lines of code I need to write, and remaining 80 lines of code written by the framework only. Okay. Let me repeat here. If you are working with Spring Boot, any security flavor, typically it is going to take care of 10 to 20% of the code should be written by the developer. 20 to 80% of the code is written by the framework. So what piece of code developer should write? What piece of code will framework will take care? What is the 10 to 20%? What is the 20 to 80%? I want to give some high level overview. Okay. So this is useful throughout my 18 to 20 classes, whatever the classes I'll take security, right? This will be very, very useful throughout the classes. And you need to remember this particular tabular format till my security is over. It should be printed on your mind. Whenever I wake you up in the midnight, can you give me the table? Means you should provide something like you should remember till my security is over. Okay. What is a framework responsibility? What is the target of a framework? What exactly the responsibility of a framework? Which is nothing but security jars will be provided by the framework. Okay. By default, security jars are provided by the framework. Who will provide it by default? Any jars, not only security jars. All jars are typically provided by the framework. Second point is every request will be intercepted. If I hit localhost ticket create, if I hit localhost ticket all, if I hit localhost ticket put, if I hit any API, default every request will be intercepted or every request will be verified. Is that request is having valid authentication or valid authorization? Something like that. Okay. For example, I booked a movie ticket and at the entrance, there is a security guy will be there, right? He will verify every person, does they have ticket or not, right? So in the similar way, security jars is going to verify each and every request, whether is it a valid request or invalid request. That is the second point. Redirection of the URL, whether do you need to redirect to login page? By default, whenever first time it is coming, first time only we are coming. For example, a person coming to first time to the theater, without knowingly he'll go to he is trying to enter into theater. The security guy will tell, hey, there is a ticket counter is there, go there and get the ticket and come over here. He will tell that, right? Redirecting the person from the movie hall to the ticket counter will be done by the security guy, right? Here also, if you are trying to access any of the things for the first time, automatically it will not give an access to ticket controller. It is giving an access to login page. So redirection of the login page done by the security jars only. User ID and password verification is that you whatever the user ID typed by the developer, whatever the password typed by the developer, all these are typically verified by the framework only. And if it is success, redirected to the success page. If it is a failure, again redirected to the login page. Maximum work will be done by the framework only. Jars will be provided by the framework. Interception will be done by the framework. Login page created by the framework. Redirect into success page if login is success. Redirect into failure if login is failure, done by the framework. And verification is also done by the framework. Clear on the framework responsibilities? Now what developer need to write? This is not only for first one, all 8 examples, this is a common prototype. Okay. First point is writing security related artifact in pom.xml. We need to write, developer need to select security related artifact in pom.xml. Then only security jars will be downloaded, which is typically taken care of. So writing security related artifact in pom.xml and enabling security configuration, that will be done by the application.properties. That's the first point. Authentication object as well as authorization object. Authentication object is created by the framework. Authorization object will be created by the framework, and developer need to populate the values. Spring Boot is creating authentication object. I need to populate the value. Ramu is the username. Ramu is the password. Srini is the username. Srini is the password. Vijay is the username. Vijay is the password. I will access the authentication object which is created by the Spring Boot. Hey, Spring Boot, these are my user IDs. These are my passwords. And these are my roles. I'll give my data. You verify everything. You run the things. Okay. Authorization rules also to be provided by the developer. Admin role, this access. Guest role, this access. Our rules will be done by the developer only. Okay. Authentication object, authorization object to be populated by the developer. But these objects are created by the framework only. Framework is going to create authentication object. Framework is going to give an authorization object. By default, these values to be populated by the developer. These values to be submitted by the developer. Okay. Makes sense, right? Yes. And we need to follow the guidelines mentioned by the framework in the entire workflow. We need to follow the guidelines. There will be typical guidelines are there mentioned by the framework in the entire workflow. Then only we can implement. And so to have these all steps by the framework, some guidelines are there. Like derived method, we have guidelines, right? Method name should be abstract method, find by keyword. Some guidelines are there, right? So like those guidelines here also in security framework, we have some guidelines. By default, you need to make sure that you need to follow the guidelines. Okay. In a nutshell, typically 80% of the code is written by the framework. 20% of the code is written by the developer. There's a typical thing here. So is the tabular form is clear? Anyone? Any questions on the tabular format? Everyone is clear? Come on, guys. No one is getting questions on security. Typically, it's surprising. In the initial classes, lot of people ask a lot of good questions. Energy is gone already, guys. My energy is same. At the time of demo, whatever the energy I have, same energy. Am I not? Okay, it's up to you. Any questions, guys? Let me repeat again. Okay.
As of no questions.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I'll go into the first topic, which is the default security. So whatever the first exercise I did, right? That is a default security only. What is the first exercise? Writing security related artifact in pom.xml. That's it, which will download the security jars. And in the first approach, developer no need to write any code. And it's only authentication. No authorization. What do you mean by only authentication, no authorization? What exactly the meaning?
Only
Only,
username and password is validating. There is no such kind of validation for user role.
correct. Exactly. So entering into the application is only there. After entering application, you can access everything. Correct, right? Entering into the application is only there. After entering into the application, every controller you can access, every method you can access. Typically, one movie, one theater, or one theater, only one movie. Do we require authorization? If you get ticket, only you have only one option, right? Am I right? In olden days, there is a movie theater, is there, right? One theater, one movie. So, yes, by default, you should have only one user. I only have one user. If you have only one user, does it have authentication is possible? If you have only one user, is that authentication is possible, guys? No. By default, if you have only one user, by default, no authentication is possible. So it is typically where we are going to have. Okay. Now default username is user and the password will be generated. In the default security, my default username is user and password will be automatically generated. Okay. So this is a security guideline. Username will be user only. You cannot change that. And password will be whenever you run, it will be generated. That's what we discussed, right? So should I show you once again or not required, guys? Should I show you once again or not required?
It's not required. We know.
Yes. Everyone is clear, right? By default, in the logs, you will get a password. Username is user and password is generated so that you can access everything. But I don't want that, sir. Okay. Sir, I don't want my username as user. I'll collect my password from the logs or something like I'm not liking that approach. I don't like that approach. Is there any option for me? Username is not user. Password is not. By default, it is going to have. Okay. Now, in that particular case, what I am trying to focus is nothing but 1 second, guys. 1 second, 1 second, guys. 1 second, please. I'm stopping for 1 second. Share, I'm stopping 1 second, please. Changes. Only configuration changes which we need to write. So those configuration properties I'm going to write.
So Vijay, I have one question on default security.
Please.
Like while I was first time it was asking for me username and password. For the next sheet, it was
Yeah.
not asking me
Yeah, I'll
anything
explain.
like
I'll
username
explain.
password.
I'll explain. I'll explain. It's a single sign on. I'll go into explain further.
So
Okay.
how it's
It-
maintaining
yeah,
in
I'll explain.
browser?
I'll
Okay.
explain everything. I will explain. Okay. Yeah. It's advanced question as of now. Okay. Right. Maybe you'll get after two classes. The answer is you'll get after two classes. At high level, the answer is it will internally create a J session ID, and the J session ID is populated for the first time verification. And as long as if J session ID is there, it will not authenticate and authorize, because for every request it should not authenticate, right? First time it is authenticated for the session. I already authenticated with you. Why again you want to check again and again and again and again? No need, right? So that is the point here. Single sign-on, it is going to mention. Okay, that's a high level answer, but I will explain clearly in depth after one or two classes. Right. Now here, in this context, I am writing two configurations, spring.security.user.name, spring.security.user.password. The two configuration files I am writing, spring.security.user.name, spring.security.user.password. If I write this configuration, what Spring Boot is going to do, that is, instead of username as user, it will take admin. Instead of password as a generated, it will take this password. So the default web security configure adapter, which is going to verify, do we have these two properties or not? No, it doesn't have anything. It will take spring.security.user.name as a user, spring.security.user.password as generated. It will generate a random number, it will use that. Assuming if I'm giving those, it will override the security values and it will take care. Now, if I run this application after adding this, now here you don't saw anywhere password is printed. Do you saw anywhere password is printed? It is not generated at all. Correct, right? So when I access localhost colon 8080 ticket slash all, first time it is asking if I give username as user, password as user, it's giving bad credentials. If I give admin, admin, this is what I gave, right? Username is admin, password is admin. Now it is going to ask ticket slash Ramu. Also it is giving, right? So this is the customized security. What is the customized security? Second flavor. Here also only authentication, no authorization, no lines of code. LOC means no lines of code. User can customize the username. User can customize the password. So in the first two examples, you can only use a use case for authentication, but not for authorization. Sir, where this will be useful typically? Is it really useful for us? Is this really useful for us? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Where will be useful?
Generally, when you provision, at least one user needs to be there, like system admin user or something. It's kind of a base user. So that's where they will use.
Okay. Maybe what my point was, okay. Sir, you are doing a POC. Okay, your customer is asking some concept and you want to implement a POC, proof of concept. And it's not a real, it's a proof. Just like, sir, you asked something, I gave like this a high level overview. If customer likes That time only I'll take care of. If customer likes, then only I'll take care of further. Otherwise, it's the only proof. So, in my perspective, a code, it is only useful for POC, and you want to protect the application. No roles, no users, nothing. Just blindly like ticket booking application. Okay. So you want to protect this application. If you like, if you are develop, I mean, if the things are like good, okay, then only it is going to take care. Otherwise, it's not going to take care. So in those scenarios, in POC concepts, yes, typically it is useful. Make sense, everyone?
Yes, sir, makes sense.
Yeah.
One other follow-up question on that.
Mhm.
So there is only we have. Can we create more than one users with
No.
this also?
No.
Okay.
We cannot create. Only one user only possible. We cannot create more than one user. Only one user itself is possible. That's why it's only authentication. Why I told authentication, no authorization? We have only option of one user. We don't have multiple options, right? We only have an option of one user. We don't have any other options. So typically only authentication and no authorization at all. Yeah. Any other question? Srini, you're clear, right?
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, sir, can we define role here also?
No, that's what I mentioned, right? Only one, for example, you define role, sir. Okay. What you will do with the role? When role into come into picture, if two users are there, okay, this guy, that role, that guy, this role, then you can play something. Even if you define role, is there any use for that?
No, sir, but one thing, my case is that
Mhm.
suppose one user we want to create in this scenario, and for that user we provide some limited access. Can we do in this way or not?
Limited access means what exactly limited access?
Limited access means not access for all controller. You want when
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. For example, I have given admin. Okay. Now for admin, you want to give a limited access, right?
Yes,
Now that means for other user, you want to give one more access, right?
yes,
That is the meaning, right?
right,
So for admin user, you are going to give restricted access. That means for other user, you are going to give good access, right? One more access, right?
right.
In this concept, only one user is there. You cannot create more than one user at all. In this example, if you want that, you cannot use this prototype.
Okay.
Understand, right? For
Yeah, got it.
example, you want to create more than one user. I mean, if you want to have restricted one user some access, one user some access, you should not use this approach at all. This approach is only for POC concepts, okay, where one user, one access. All users all same only, okay? You don't have any difference at all. Yep. Any other question?
Got it.
As of now, any other questions? Anyone?
When you say proof of concept, so
Mhm.
like, okay, I understand the admin for namesake, we are creating some user ID and password just to show a demo to the client. But the front end, can I customize with the company logo and all if I want to show?
No. They cannot customize. It's a
Okay.
typically this is it's a
Everything
POC.
is defined. Okay.
Everything is. It's a POC.
Okay, fine.
It's a really good question. Yeah. So, in other words, sir, we are not writing anything. Typically, framework is going to take care of everything, creating a custom page and creating all logic and everything. Just like it's a POC, something like so. Any user ID password is there, that's fine. You don't want to have any logos or something, it is not possible. If you want any customization, you need to go with other approach, not this approach. Yes.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, if you want to create a website and whenever a new user will come to my website, we must authenticate and not divide into roles. At that time, we have any concept here or not?
If at all, if a new user is there, it's a one more user, right?
Yes, sir.
You're got no, I mean, all people are still some confusion. Only one user is possible, that too admin and admin only. New user is not possible at all. This concept is not useful in that. Okay.
And not having separate roles at that time, we have any concept, sir? Only authentication and at the same
This
time, no
is only
authorization.
authentication, only no authorization, but username and password you should add at the configuration file only.
If we have multiple users,
That's what I mentioned, right? If I have multiple users, this concept is not useful.
okay, sir. And I
Okay.
mentioned that no authorization also required.
No authorization means yes, by default, if I have only one user and no authorization, even if you have authorization, there is no use, right? Only one user is possible. He can access everything. That's what I mentioned, right?
Sir, my question was, if you have more than one users and no authorization at that time, we have any concept or not?
That's what I mentioned, sir. In this example, you cannot do that.
Okay, sir.
Okay. If at all, more than one user itself is not possible, then why to go with authorization? Forget about authorization.
Vijay, if I understand his question correctly,
Mhm.
is there any, basically what is asking is, when multiple users are there without authorization, can we let them in? Not in this
Correct.
concept, in some other concept also.
Okay.
I hope
That's
it
what
is
I
possible.
mentioned. Maybe in some, no, he's asking in this concept only. Okay. But in some other concept, you can achieve that, right? You can have more than one user. You don't need to define authorization. It is achieved. In this concept, more than one user itself is not possible. Forget
Okay,
about
sir.
authorization.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Any other? Everyone is clear? Right. Now I want to proceed in-memory authentication. This is the concept first we are going to define. Third concept is in-memory authentication as well as in-memory authorization. This is stands for both authentication as well as authorization. This stands for both authentication as well as authorization. Okay. So what do you mean? Yeah.
There's one more question here, like you have hard coded this value in the application.properties file. Is there any way that we
No,
can
no,
encode or decode something?
nothing. It's
Okay.
not possible. Okay. First of
Mhm.
all, I mentioned it's a POC. POC does not have all these concepts. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Right. Now, there's a third example, which is in-memory authentication and authorization. Here, we are going to create more than one user. This is where all these questions comes down. I want to create more than one user and I want to associate the role, and I can achieve authentication as well as I can achieve authorization. I can achieve authentication as well as I can achieve authorization. Okay. But the concept is in memory. The keyword itself is giving in memory. What do you mean by in memory? Means all these users as well as all the roles, all the users, all the roles are which are created. It will be there. It will be created in the memory, Tomcat memory. The users as well as roles typically available in the Tomcat memory. So by default, at the time of startup, when you are starting application, for example, in ticket booking application only, I created two users, Vijay one user, Srini another user. Okay, Vijay as one user, Srini as another user. Okay, now Vijay user, I want to give only read access. For Srini user, I want to give full access. You can create a ticket, you can update a ticket, you can delete a ticket, something like that. So I wrote some code making sure that Vijay can access only guest user. Srini is a full access user. Maybe I wrote some code, right? Whenever we start our application, whenever we are going to start our application, whatever the roles I give, those will be there as it is. You cannot change at runtime. Whatever is you wrote, which role for which user, at runtime, this will not change. Only before running your application, this will be constant. That is static authentication as well as static authorization. What do you mean by static authentication? What do you mean by static authorization? Is before you run your application, whatever the data you have, you are going to use the same data for authentication. You are going to use the same data for authorization. Okay. You cannot change at runtime. Sir, my application is running. Now I want Vijay to also full access. You cannot possible because all these users, all these rules are created in Tomcat, are created in the memory, server memory. When server memory will be crashed or when server memory will be over, when you stop the application, then only server memory will be destroyed. So compilation time only you can achieve. Runtime you cannot achieve anything. Purely this is a compilation time only we can achieve. That is called as in-memory authentication as well as in-memory authorization. Let me repeat here. In-memory authentication and in-memory authorization is mainly for authentication as well as authorization. Okay. And as part of this concept, whatever the users and whatever the roles which we created, those are compilation time only. Okay. So at runtime, we cannot change the values. At runtime, we cannot change the values. If you want to change the values, you need to stop the application and you can run application again. So this is the typical example. And when we can use in real time, a small application in real time, where 2 or 3 or 4 users or 10 users, maybe 2 or 3 roles, something like very small application, few set of users, few set of roles. For example, a normal rural bank, a bank which is in a village. Okay. In the bank, people are constant and their operations are also constant. A manager will be there, a cashier will be there, a clerk will be there, maybe a normal security guard will be there, right? Manager is going to take care of managerial operations. Cashier is going to collect and is going to give. Clerk is going to check all the things. So these are the fixed roles. They cannot be changed at all. Am I right? Till he retires, No one can enter into the bank and no one can, right? Am I right, guys? So typically in an application which is having few set of users, which is having few set of roles, which are constant, which cannot be changed at all. And that too, number of users, number of roles are few. I mean, it's a small number, like less than a 10. In that case, I can use this approach where in-memory authentication as well as in-memory authorization. Is it clear? As of now,
Yes.
the usage and everything is clear, right? Now you need to understand the lot of internal. Now here in this code, we are going to write a code. Okay. We are going to write a code and we are going to discuss some of the concepts we need to discuss, guys. Like some of the core internals we need to discuss. Maybe it will take 45 to 50 minutes to discuss. It's a one class, it is going to take care. Maybe I'll take care on this next class. But before that, I want to share the code. Okay, let me go to 9 to 10 November. Okay. Here security, I will remove this. I'm going to zip it. I'm going to add custom security. Let's go topic, custom security. I'm going to share the code. So tomorrow I'm going to discuss in depth of in-memory authentication, in-memory authorization. I already shared the notes, guys. Okay, security view, and which is a custom security. You saw that. So this is the notes which I'm going to take tomorrow. Already I shared this code in custom security. Okay. So I'll repeat this in tomorrow class. Maybe I'll take a leave if you don't have a question. Sasa.
Sir, last class I don't have attend the introduction class, but today you have introduced the security concepts. But the last class implementation, can you give an overview about that?
I already gave an overview in the today's class, and I already explained. At the time of teaching also I asked actually, do I need to repeat? 2 times I asked, right, Koteshwara?
Yes, sir.
So you should open up at that time. Okay. But anyhow, let me repeat here. Without writing this code. Okay. In the last class, I mentioned default username is user, password is same example, but in the console you will get a password. Username is user, password is console, whatever it is typed in the console. And same example, apart from that, there is no other change.
Sir, is
Okay.
there any annotations or implementation changes?
Nothing, no annotations, nothing I discussed here. Same, sir, the same example. Just I extracted the same code. Okay. I added these two properties today. If at all, if I didn't add these two properties, username is user, password is generated in the console. That's the only difference. Apart from that, nothing. Okay.
Only pom.xml file would we add only one dependency and
That's it.
and they made these changes, we can achieve that.
We no need this actually. We no need to. In last class, we didn't added this. Today
Okay,
only
sir.
I added this. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And you don't have recording access.
No, sir.
If you don't have recording session access, don't miss the classes, because now this time is only a small topic which I was able to explain. But when topics are going on, I cannot do the same because it's a typically high level concept. When you see a JWT, if you miss one class, you are gone. You will not understand the next class also. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Kindly make
Thank
sure
you.
that not only to you, everyone I'm telling, if you miss the classes, I can only explain at a high level, which will not useful for you. That's what I'm telling. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other?
Sir, one
Fine.
question, not
Mhm.
particular for
Yeah,
today's
go ahead.
class.
Go ahead.
Just I faced this question in the interview. So can we call a rest endpoints without starting Spring Boot applications? Is there any way?
No, we cannot call.
So we have to
Definitely.
start this bootstrap class, right?
We have to call the bootstrap. Yes. Then only dispatcher server will be created. Then only IOC container will be created. Then only my beans will be there in IOC container. Then only request mapping will be formed. Then only dispatcher server will be created. Then only I can access. The complete demo I gave you right in the introduction part. Everything is mandatory.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But suppose if we deploy an external server, sir, like in web apps folder.
At time also, right? You need to start your server, right?
Yeah, okay. That time the server
You
will
need to
start
start
this.
you need to start manually. You need to start during startup. It will take care, right? Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, in some websites, after entering into the website, after 5 minutes or 2 minutes, then the user credential will be entered. At that time, how we can achieve that, sir?
I didn't get your question properly. Can you ask the question properly if you don't mind?
Sir, in some websites, after entering the website, we can take some time, and after that, we can enter the credentials. Then only we can use the website. Otherwise, we can't use that website for any reading or other purpose. How we
Can you
can
mention
achieve
one
that?
website name? Can you mention that one website name? In some website you mentioned, right? I am asking at least one website name. Can you tell?
Sir, sometimes we can, whenever we want to
Sir, I am
get the
asking
content
a
in Geeks
question.
sir,
I'm
like
asking.
Geeks for Geeks website, sometimes it can have access. It must have access. Then only we can read the content. Otherwise, we can't. That time, how we can achieve that by using Spring?
What is that actually? What is that website name? I
Geeks
didn't
for
understand.
Geeks.
Geeks for Geeks. Okay. Okay. I'm able to access, right? And when it is going to access you? When you want to access?
After some time, it can ask the questions like enter the user or user and
I
password.
closed it. Closed it. I'm not asking.
If that
Can you click any link?
is there any?
I got what he was asking. Just click any link.
It's optional, sir. So by default, in real time, some of the options you want to have, that is what authorization comes into picture. Okay. Authentication and authorization comes into picture. Where you have a static content, you have a dynamic content, right? And you need to make sure that for static content, you need to have some rules. Dynamic content, you need to have some rules. Maybe in the third point only, I'll explain clearly in this example only. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Okay, guys, I'll stop for today. We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.
Recording stopped.